dear and respected friends. So it is a joy to be together this afternoon and offering ourselves to our continued learning Mahakumbh. and
Mhm.
it is in this that Professor Arun Kumar Patnaik has kindly joined us. And so we are so happy that we are getting an occasion to listen to Professor Patnaik on his recently published book, Gramsci and South Asia. And a study like this is a unique one, long awaited, because one wonders with the seminal contribution of Gramsci, but Gramsci and India and issue of religion and many other related issues have not received enough attention from Indian scholars. Gramsci and South Asia is not just a one-way journey, but in what way also South Asian theorizing and experience can help us to reread Gramsci. And most of the time, our engagement is always one way. And a work like this also has a potential for a two-way rethinking of our ways of thinking and political action. So with this, so I invite Professor Patnaik to kindly make your presentation up to 35 to 40 minutes. And after that, let us say 40 minutes. Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And after that, we would be having our discussion, please.
Okay.
Professor.
Thank you, Professor Ananta. This my presentation is long due. You have been pestering me for last 4 months, but somehow I could not take up because I was busy with my field work uh, and other preoccupations. And yet you didn't give up hopes. Therefore, I really admire your patience and perseverance in chasing people down and extracting surplus from them is a really remarkable patience you have shown in this journey. Uh, the title of my presentation is Gramsci and South Asia. Uh, Title itself would invoke quite a few imaginations. One, why Gramsci in South Asia? Gramsci is a European thinker. Is irrelevant in South Asia, which has different history than European history, or are these histories are similar? Therefore, Gramsci can be applied to India. Or they are, if they are different, then how can Gramsci be applied to India? How far they are different? How far they are similar? And do we find concerns of Indian intellectuals are akin to Gramsci's concerns? These questions are very important because most of the decolonizing debates, which began with K.C. Bhattacharya's essay, Swaraj in Ideas, has raised those issues. KCB says that a guru can be a foreign guru, it doesn't matter. But when you are trying to adopt him in your country, in our country, that India, necessary for us to engage with him critically, not blindly. By critically means he should uh, adapt him in relation to ideals of our own thinkers and see his ideals and ideals of our own thinkers have closer affinity, and then it is possible for us to learn conceptual protocols he might have developed around those ideals. The ideals are being similar, arguments are more or less similar, conceptual tools may be different. Therefore, it is possible for us to adapt them to our context and also take him up as our guru. KCB says clearly the guru can come from any region. Therefore, guru is an inspiration. Guru is a thinker. He's a source of knowledge, and he's one who guides us. He's a torch bearer. In that sense, Gramsci can be a torch bearer for most of us in India, provided we use him critically in relation to ideals of our own thinkers like Gandhi, Ambedkar, Nehru, Tagore, Aurobindo, Ambedkar, Periyar, and many other Lohia, which I have done in my book. Therefore, this book is not simply about Gramsci and South Asia. I am trying to look at Gramsci through Gandhi's lenses in some chapters, through looking at connection with Gandhi and Ambedkar on some issues, Gandhi and Nehru on some issues, Ambedkar and Gramsci and Nehru on some issues. Similarly, Gramsci, Lohia, and Periyar on some issues. By looking at these varieties of thinkers, it is possible for us to adopt, apply Gramscian ideas to Indian context. Not without it, because if you do it blindly, you are likely to displace large number of ideals that are our own, and you are likely to displace our history and reduce our history to mere experience. And therefore, it is important for us to take a cautionary note in the beginning by learning this lesson from KCB, that once you are following a foreign guru, necessary for us to read him critically, Indian context, and read him critically in relation to our intellectual ideals, who think also similarly, though conceptually there may be differences. Therefore, one learns from a foreign guru. That is my first submission. Secondly, KCB says that one should also do, this is called this, actually what I said, assimilation route. The other route of decolonization is actually the indigenous route, where you try to understand the pulse and minds of masses, and then try to conceptualize and try to theorize that. And therefore, that is a different tradition. In this book, I am basically trying to address the question of assimilation route, how much we can assimilate from Gramsci to India's context, and how much we need not assimilate from Gramsci for India's context. These two questions are addressed in this book. I am not concerned about KCB's second route, that is the indigenous route. I have not explored that deeply. It's necessary for us to work on that more differently. That is my first submission. Therefore, second point is that that this book is about common sense, religion, and political society, or theory or political society, more or less. A theory is a methodological device, and political society is a political device. For Gramsci, every methodological device is simultaneously political. Every political device leaves behind methodological lessons. For him, methodology, theory on the one hand, and political processes are to be read carefully, to be read in their intersection. Theory leads to practice, practice leads to theory. In that sense, methodology or theory must be read politically rather than apolitically. He is essentially a political thinker. He argues this quite clearly. Now, what is social imaginary? Social imaginary is a concept I use from Charles Taylor. Is there in the whole book. Social imaginary essentially consists of common sense and religion for Gramsci. Gramsci doesn't use the word social imaginary, but he says that philosophical task of intellectuals is to engage with common sense and religion. Without tracing philosophical systems to the roots in common sense and religion, it is not possible for us to understand the depth of philosophical engagement. Every philosophical engagement, however abstract, however superb it is rooted in common sense and religion. Necessary for us to see the connections. It's not that philosophy is reducible to common sense and religion. Philosophy is a autonomous, independent domain, but its nature and contours cannot be analyzed unless we read in relation to religion and common sense. Similar argument is made by Charles Taylor. But I would like to make a difference here before I go to discuss Gramsci. In case of Gramsci, theory building or theory making takes place in dialogue with common sense and religion. So theoretical act, the act of theory, is not formed outside the domain of common sense and religion. You can't, therefore, Gramsci would not agree that theory making can take place professionally outside the domain of religion and common sense. No connection with that. And the task of theory is to penetrate and transform the one that is outside it, that is religion and common sense. Gramsci would not agree with that. That's what Taylor argues. Taylor argues that theory building is actually elite activity, the professional activity of intellectuals, and they first make theory. The theory building may adopt the features of social imaginary, features of religion or common sense, but it is made by elite intellectuals, and the task is to penetrate to social imaginary, to reshape it, to um, to guide it, and to transform it. There has been a history of modernity or modern theories, modern social theories in Europe. Taylor argues that the theory is essentially made from outside the domain of religion and common sense, to use Gramsci's language, or what Taylor calls outside social imaginary. This is where Gramsci would beg to differ with this. For Gramsci, theory making is an integral part of our understanding of common sense and religion. Therefore, theory evolves, philosophical task evolves in conjunction with, in intersection with common sense and religion, or what Taylor calls social imaginary. Unlike Taylor, Gramsci again gives an interesting classification of religion. For him, religion is not one. There are many forms of religion. I will not describe all of them because I have to quickly move to Gramsci. I'll tell briefly. Sociologically speaking, religion has four meanings for Gramsci. Religious common sense, which is rampant in society, which cuts across space and time. And second, slightly above that, in a hierarchy of consciousness, religious consciousness, lies folk religion. Folk religion is slightly organized and a small time activity of a locality, of a region, so on and so forth, is not even spread in a province. In a province, you will find many folklores, European provinces or Indian provinces. You may find many folk religions. For example, Dandanacha is celebrated in Ganjam, and there's parts of Puri and parts of Kondamal, rather than other districts of Odisha. Similarly, Chow dance is celebrated parts of Morban, Keonjhar, rather than other parts of Odisha. So these are religion, folk religion, essentially localized phenomena of few intellectual activists who are part of the masses, and they have specialized skills or have specialized art forms. They do the folk religion, or second layer. Third layer is religion of the people, which for Gramsci is a counter-hegemonic religion or a reformist religion. Fourth point is there is official religion, what Gramsci calls, or what can be also called religion of the intellectual. A religion of intellectual, many variations, centrist, rightist, and leftist. So many variations he has discussed in his book on religion. It's really a remarkable insight for us to learn. So one finds a lot of complexities in his conception of religion. Taylor has all that, but he has not classified that neatly, and a theory cannot develop unless you classify a phenomena. A theory of a phenomena is about, to begin with, is about classification of phenomena, which unfortunately Taylor, being a living philosopher of our time, also being a post-Gramscian thinker, if he had read Gramsci only, he would have got a probably better classification and a better guidance for us. Having said that, the point is, Taylor has everything in his book on social imaginary, a book on secular age. I have used them extensively, and I found Taylor's arguments very useful to prove Gramsci's arguments for our time. So my book is about these few things which I just told you, how politics or theory must engage with social imaginary of different kinds. And if there is no engagement with the social imaginary different kinds, Taylor would argue, I have taken the argument seriously, it leads to a void, leads to a gap between theory or politics on the one hand, or modernist imagination on the one hand, and social imaginary or common sense or religious consciousness on the other hand. If there is a void persisting over a long period of time, it is likely to create conditions against modernity. This is an important submission I draw from Gramsci. But I'm using Taylor through Gramsci again. Therefore, through this interchanging of ideas, through dialogue between Taylor and Gramsci, I learned quite a few interesting ideas. I use them in my book. So basically, the book is framed in these lines. Let me come to my issues, what I have learned from Gramsci for India. One important thing Gramsci argues that take common sense. Common sense is a phenomena which is rampant in society, space and time. But common sense is not a single consciousness. It has many forms of consciousness, and more than two, or a series of two, series of a pair of, or a series of pair. Therefore, uh, therefore, you are likely to find different things in different things, different contradictory things in common sense. Common sense, Ramsey says, is actually about consciousness of individual or a group of people. There could be women, there could be workers, there could be peasants, there could be individual A, individual B, there could be Kistaya, Malaya, and one Dalit, another Dalit, varieties of individuals from subaltern section on the one hand, and varieties of groups from subaltern section on the other hand. You find, and similarly, various classes are involved. Therefore, you find what Foucault would call social bodies. Social body consists of classes, communities, and individuals. So, common sense is about three things: about common sense of classes, common sense of individual, common sense of groups or social or communities. In Foucauldian language, I am putting them. Therefore, you make Gramsci argues that take example. Which is the common sense of worker is not same as common sense of woman, and the Catholicism of a peasant is not same as Catholicism of a petty bourgeois. The Catholicism of petty bourgeois is not same as Catholicism of the working class. Therefore, and within the working class again you find variations. Therefore, it is important for us to understand that common sense exists in multiple social locations. Second, each class, each individual operate, think through contradictory processes. They may be supporting hegemony today, they may be opposing hegemony today. There may be aspirations for autonomy today, there may be aspirations to reconcile with their fate today. So therefore, Gramsci says that fatalism of subaltern masses is not same as fatalism of middle class or petty bourgeoisie. The fatalism of masses may have ambiguities. On the one hand, they believe that no future is possible. On the other hand, they hope for a betterment of their life. Therefore, there is a constant oscillation from one end to another and forming a kind of contradiction of ideas. Now this idea, later that idea. Now acquiescence or subservience to powerful people, and later resistance and caricature of them. I'll give an example. There's one in South Asian context, the anthropologists have studied this, especially Odisha. The work by James Freeman on the life story of a Modi, life story of a Bauri. Bauri is a Dalit caste in Odisha. He's a construction worker. His name is Muli. He's a construction worker, a Dalit construction worker in Bhubaneswar, lives in a slum, and also is a pimp. He supplies women to upper caste. This Muli tells that, look, this upper caste who practice untouchability vis-a-vis us during daytime, don't hesitate to sleep with our women during evening. They ask me to supply during night, and they're happy to sleep with our women. There is no untouchability during night. During daytime, they are practicing untouchability. Night time, they are engaging in touchability of all kinds. Therefore, what you find, he says, the upper caste are hypocrites. On the one hand, they practice this, they talk about untouchability, justify rituals and norms, excluding Dalits. They demand Dalit subordination, Dalit subjugation during daytime. Nighttime, they are liberated from everything, and they are asking us to liberate ourselves. Therefore, he says this is inconsistency. Moli says this is inconsistency of of the upper caste society. On the one hand, he talks about this. Other hand, also Modi reveals his own character, his own inconsistency. And the morning he is showing subordination to upper caste domination. Evening he is also showing subordination to upper caste domination. But there is a difference. Difference is he makes a light of it, makes caricature of it, makes fun of it during daytime and evening. Therefore, there is a story of interesting story. You should read this biography. And I find this Gramsci would say the exactly a phenomenon of contradiction in consciousness. Common sense is not one consciousness. It's not simply about subordination, not simply about marginalization, not simply about subjugation. It's also about escaping from subjugation, escaping from power relationship, and what Foucault would say, the underside of power. This, therefore, this common sense remains underside of our relationship. There are senses in common sense that escape our relationship. Again, I'm citing Foucault from Power Knowledge. Therefore, Foucault, in my view, is almost close to Gramsci in Power Knowledge, especially the way he describes relation to power and common sense is absolutely brilliant, as good as Gramsci. Doesn't give any reference to Gramsci, but absolutely path-breaking. Text written in 77 is anticipated by Gramsci in 1930. Point is, therefore, common sense, I use this idea and argue that common sense, you look at South Asian context, common sense is ambivalent. Common sense is full of contradiction, and you can't simply characterize Dalits at this side or that side, or working class this side, that side. Necessary for us to understand them holistically by looking at contradiction in consciousness, which is common sense. Then everyday consciousness, you have a script, you have a subscript, as James Scott describes later. James Scott unfortunately thinks that Gramsci argues that common sense is about subjugation, common sense is about assimilation of power relationship, and James Scott criticizes Gramsci by ignoring the underscript. Without reading Gramsci carefully, James Scott comes to conclusion which Gramsci himself draws conclusion. Gramsci doesn't use the word script and underscript, but he has different words. But point is, Gramsci argues that there is good sense in common sense. Good sense may be underscript, good sense may be forescript. Good sense may be underside, good sense may be front side. But the question is not this side, that side. Good sense is good sense, which is a potential for escaping from power relationship, potential for constructing a better society, potential for a hope for empowerment, for liberation, for freedom, and so on and so forth. These potentials exist side by side. Subjugation, domination, and exploitation. Operation. These two dualities constitute common sense, dual forms of consciousness, what James Scott calls text and subtext, or script and subscript. That's again there in Gramsci, but James Scott doesn't understand it. He tries to flatten Gramsci's account, argues that Gramsci believes in how ruling class ideas are disseminated among within the common sense. By capturing it, by conquering it, ruling class succeeds. That's not Gramsci, unfortunately. But the point is this, many of the scholars commenting on Gramsci, by and large, distorted Gramsci or taken Gramsci to a different length. I don't know how, but point is their arguments are well anticipated Gramsci. I'm sorry to say that most scholars working on Gramsci, by and large, ignored this point, the duality in common sense. Even Gramscian scholars working on Italian sources, Italian language, writing on Gramsci, have presented Gramsci as if common sense is a sediment form of our relationship. Common sense is not sediment form of our relationship. It is a sediment, yes, but it's not about sediment. It's also about escaping from power relationship, escaping from subordination, exploitation, oppression, as Michel Foucault so argues so well. That escape is there in Gramsci's concept of good sense. Good sense or prejudicial sense, they coexist, but good sense tries to offer a counter narrative, a potential to reconstruct society in a better form. So this idea is applicable to South Asia, as I have given the example from life of Bauri Muli in Bhubaneswar. Now, and why? Because I said the point is here, what are the ideals? Quite a few. Gandhi himself, Gandhi argues that we cannot build a Swaraj unless we connect with masses. KCB says in Swaraj and Ideas, unless we understand the pulse of the minds of masses, we can't think of Swaraj and Ideas. Connecting with people, connecting with their imagination, connecting with their good sense, how national building took place in India's anti-colonial period. Similarly, Rabindranath Tagore tries to connect with folk religion, with common people's ideas. He is critical of Brahma Samaj for acting like a caste society against popular religion. Therefore, many of the Indian intellectuals try to connect with masses, Ambedkar, Periyar, and then try to connect with common sense of people, try to connect with good sense in people, then build a anti-caste narrative or build a national freedom struggle or build the idea of sadhana by connecting with Baul culture in Bengal by Tagore. Now, the idea is basically the ideals akin to what Gramsci proposes. Therefore, I have borrowed Gramsci in relation to our own ideals, propped up by our great thinkers like Gandhi, Ambedkar, Periyar, Tagore, and many others. You can name many people would support this idea. But point is, unlike them, Gramsci is very clear. Gramsci argues that common sense is something which you can't glorify, nor you can underestimate. You must take a middle course. Therefore, though ideal, though the Gramsci's ideals are akin to all these great masters which I told you, but unlike them, Gramsci has a greater depth of the ideas here. The ideals are similar, therefore, Gramsci's ideals are applicable to Indian context. But the reason why I bank on Gramsci is because Gramsci's ideals are a bit more conceptually guided. He argues that common sense has dual sides. You don't find this in Gandhi, don't find this KCB, don't find in Tagore, don't find in Periyar, don't find in Ambedkar, don't find anywhere. But point is, they talk out of good sense, anti-caste sentiments. So this is the national sentiments, idea of Swaraj. Therefore, ideals are similar, but conceptual protocols in Gramsci give us better insight about common sense, which I kind of think I talked about bully. Our Gramscian ideals are there in Indian context, but Gramsci's conceptual protocols are not there in India's context. Therefore, I rely on Gramsci. For this, it's possible for me to call Gramsci as my guru. As my foreign guru, let me qualify that. The idea is that so this is about common sense. Let me quickly go to the other side. Less time. The other point which book talks about is that there is a common sense which is religion. This or religious common sense. Religious common sense again, like common sense, is not one consciousness. It is two or a series of two, a pair or series of pair. I have used psychological theory. Argue that Gramsci doesn't describe this way, but since he is committed to the concept of religious common sense, and for him, common sense is not single consciousness, is a consciousness of a split variety or a contradictory variety, or a consciousness of ambivalence and paradoxes, good sense and prejudicial sense, reactionary ideas and progressive ideas, hope for a better society while conforming with the existing order. Now, these forms of consciousness coexist in minds of subalterns, whether they are individuals or groups or classes. As Foucault says, in their social bodies, you don't have one consciousness. You have two different kinds of consciousness, sharply opposed to each other. And that is because of their their position in subaltern status. Because of their subaltern existence, because of the marginalization process, the contradiction remains internal part of their life story. They are led to a life of contradiction. This is important. They are not led to life of marginalization alone, which is what all the social theories try to paint before us. They are not led to life of a good sense, good life, which Gandhi, Periyar, or Ambedkar on the other side, or even Tagore. In their life, you find dual consciousness. This is typical of Gramsci. There is something in Gramsci for which we must learn from him. I will tell you how that is useful later. Let me talk about religious common sense. Religious common sense is again split into two. I have called one extrinsic faith, one intrinsic faith. Extrinsic faith, let us talk about intrinsic faith. Intrinsic faith about internal beliefs of religious. See, I may believe in personal God, you may believe in impersonal God, and somebody else may believe in image of naturalism. But these beliefs are just different, and they may be trying to impose on each other. The idea of personal God in Indian context is rampant, and people believe in institutional form of religion. People believe in personal God. God manifested in one image or an idol. This is also true for Christianity. They were both Christians and Hindus by and large believe in the idea of personal God, where God manifests in idol or God manifests in image. Therefore, this is religious common sense of Christians and Hindus. But unlike them, Muslims don't believe in personal God. They believe in abstract God. God exists. Yes, they don't. God exists. God exists only in abstraction. God is not in the image. God is not in the idol. Therefore, they reject idol worshipping and image worshipping. Therefore, they believe in abstract God. God is invisible. God is everywhere. Therefore, God exists everywhere. The idea of abstract God is also subscribed to by many Hindus and many Christians, but they are of a different kind. They are a rebellious type. For example, Gandhi argues that I don't believe in personal God. I don't believe, I am not temple going Gandhi, Hindu. I believe my God resides in my heart and soul. Like Rousseau, he would say, my God resides in my heart and soul. Therefore, my Ram is not there. My Ram is in my mind. My Ram is my heart. So my Ram is in my message. The message is important for me. Therefore, not going to Ayodhya is important for me. Therefore, there is the idea of personal God, which is impersonal God, which is a bit of a reformist kind, bit of a rebellious type. But if you look at the idea of impersonal God by Muslims, the idea of impersonal God is actually an institutional God, an institutional form of religion. In the religious common sense of Muslims is not same as religious common sense of Hindus, religious common sense of Christians. There's so many complexities. It's necessary for us to pay attention to these complexities while trying to reform them, while trying to relate to the debates, conflicts that have arisen around the idea of personal God. This is the lesson I learned from Gramsci. Uh, when I applied to Ram Janmabhoomi, I find the idea of Janmabhoomi is again very popular among Hindus. God is actually, God takes birth in a particular place where temple is built, or God is incarnated in a particular place where temple is built. This idea is rampant among Hindus. This is an idea which is widespread among Hindus. Both Shaivites and Vaishnavite may believe different icons, different idols, but they believe in God is incarnation of incarnate in so and so place, therefore temple is built, or God is born here, therefore temple is built. Now, this idea of Janmabhoomi was played very interestingly by the Hindu writer, very skillfully, by connecting with the religious common sense. By connecting religious common sense, Hindu right became a powerful entity in today's politics. Uh, and therefore, this religious common sense can play a positive role, can play a negative role, can be a catalyst for social change, can be catalyst for Gandhi argues that I am not a temple going Hindu, But I respect Hindus who visit temples. I don't challenge, I don't believe in confronting them. Let them worship their God in temples. Let them visit temples. He supported temple entry by lower caste who denied access to it for that reason. Though he didn't believe in temple as form of worshipping God. He believed he never was a temple going Hindu. But he was not opposed to temple going Hindus. The idea is that no religious faith which is internal to each other should try to dominate other religious faith. Your impersonal God should not dominate my personal God. My personal God should not dominate your personal God. Therefore Gandhi argues that unless a secular society tries to balance between varieties of internal faith, varieties of intrinsic faith, society will be in perpetual crisis. Gandhi gives a hint there. After independence, Gandhi says that state has to be secular. In order to be secular, it has to hold a balance of faiths. Balance of faith means I am using the word intrinsic faith. This is my innovation. Therefore, when Gandhi talks about balance of faith, he means balance of intrinsic faith. No intrinsic faith should dominate over other intrinsic faith. They must respect each other. They must uh, must have a dialogue with each other by respecting each other's autonomy, not by intruding, not by converting, not by protruding into each other's domain. If they do so, then religious balance is lost. Secularism will be in perennial crisis. This is an important lesson we learn from Gramsci and Gandhi. Therefore, by reading Gramsci through Gandhi, through Ram Janmabhoomi, I realized that when this Ram Janmabhoomi issue persisted over a period of time, it helped Jansangh BJP to come to power. Look at the phases. Ram Janmabhoomi issue cropped up in 17th century India. The documents, the archival documents that argue that they are documented by Jesuit priests that that during Ram Navami, Hindus used to do parikrama around Ram Janmabhoomi. That Ram Janmabhoomi was non-existent. Babri Masjid was existent, but they argued that the Hindus used to do parikrama around their Ram Janmabhoomi in Babri Masjid. They saw Ram Janmabhoomi. This idea is not manufactured by BJP and RSS. Where 17 they were not there. Therefore, the idea is then look at 1857 before Sipai Mutiny, around 1855. There was a clash between Hindus and Muslims on the Ram Janmabhoomi side, and many were killed. Many Muslims were killed, few Hindus were killed, and they were all buried there. Now, there is a story, it continued in 40s and persisted till India got independence. And British tried to do something, I mean, local, but it was a local issue. As Peter Van Deer argued that I am surprised how a local issue became a national issue. Point here is the local issue called Ram Janmabhoomi triggers the idea of Janmabhoomi in Hindu mind. The idea of Janmabhoomi, God born in a place, is a national consciousness of all Hindus. They believe in personal God in that sense. Therefore, they believe in idol worshipping in that sense. Idol worshipping Hindus across India, not just North India, believe in the idea of personal God. God being born there. The point is, this idea is so rampant, and BJP didn't realize that. Johnson didn't understand this significance. Therefore, they also, when in 49 the issue cropped up, they went to Faizabad court. So it remained Faizabad court and struggled till 1989. From 40 years, 49 to 80, 89, the Jansang, the Hindu right, did not realize that there is a religious common sense which is rampant across India that they should connect and gain hegemonic position. They also followed Nehru's path, that disputes should settle through legal path, law court. Therefore, they went to Hyderabad court, and Nehru happily decided to lock this in the court case. Both the secular state and Hindu fundamentalists were following same path, legal path, until 1989, when the Hindu right realized that they are trapped in a legal path. They must come out of it by connecting themselves with religious common sense of Hindus. They did that. 89 to 92, they led a massive movement. Therefore, they got connected with the religious common sense of Hindus that cut across Lingayats in the south and Kavirpanthis in the north. Therefore, this idea of Ram, which cut across various parts of India, from east to west and north to south, caught the imagination of people. Peter Randhir was surprised that how could a local issue, which I thought a local issue, become a national issue. He missed this Gramsci's concept of religious common sense. That religious common sense is the source of the fountain source of knowledge. And once the Hindu right could connect with religious common sense, could flag it off as a major concern, it became a pan-Indian movement and it became a pan-Indian party, a party of 2 digits before 1989, became a party of 3 digits after 92. The fact is like that is connected religious common sense, connected with one. I'm not trying to evaluate them. I'm trying to see how they become hegemonic. Gramsci's idea is that if you underestimate common sense, you underestimate religious common sense, your hegemony will not be successful. Only when you respect it, connect with that, dialogue with that, moderate that, take a middle path on that, it's possible for you to gain hegemony. But if you disrespect it, disconnect with that, you can't be hegemonic. The secular forces, by disrespecting religious common sense, by saying that there should be this or there should be a developmental project in there should be hospital there should be this clinic, that clinic, all kinds of development solutions, they were offered to tackle a religious dispute. Religious dispute must be tackled internally by looking at internal constituents of religion. So this point we learn from Gramsci. Gramsci argued that if we underestimate common sense or glorify common sense, we will commit mistakes. We will not succeed in gaining hegemony. Hegemony is essentially a project which must connect with religious common sense or intrinsic faith of each religion, and also if it's a secular hegemony, it must connect with the intrinsic faith of each religion. To cite Gandhi, one should be critical of all kinds of conversion by Suddhi, conversion by method of tabligh, by method of conversion. Conversion is conversion. Why you have to project your religion being pure, my religion being impure? Now, why you are projecting one intrinsic faith as a pure, another intrinsic faith as impure? Therefore, and Gramsci argues similar thing, which is Christianity is trying to pollute civilizations in China and Europe, China and India. I'm afraid it might ruin the civilizations in India and China. That didn't happen, but point is, it was a threat at one time. Therefore, the ideas of Gramsci are well connected with Gandhi's idea that one should be having a balanced attitude towards intrinsic faith. The other side of religious common sense is what I call extrinsic faith. That your faith, religious functions, you may believe, they are not necessarily internal part of your religion. You are using them, the instrumental purpose, justify caste inequality, justify gender oppression, justify domination over tribes, and so on and so forth. You call tribes Hanuman, Jambavan, and primitive fellows, and you call yourself civilized. So therefore, this is how Ramayana and Mahabharata are constructed. So the idea is that, and these are tribes themselves told our team. They said earlier, sir, they called us Jambavan, Hanuman. Now they are at least giving a sacred thread. So we are now Brahmins. So the tribes experience elevation through Hindutva project. There's the same Hindutva fellows called as Jambavan, Hanuman, Sugriv, Bali. They say that they are not civilized, they are not human beings. Now they are suddenly talking positively. They are giving us sacred thread. They are bringing Jagannath chariot to us. Therefore, they are connecting with us. They are respecting us. This is how you must respect religious common sense. If you don't respect intrinsic faith of each community, you will create crisis. By following legal path, secular forces in India gave a signal that they have no respect for intrinsic faith of Hindus. This is a major mistake, major blunder secular forces made. And I learned from Gandhi and Gramsci that if that is so, then your secular project will be in deep crisis. That's what happened. Happened in 92 and continues to happen till now. So this is what I use this religious common sense as a useful concept to understand how dialogue with religious common sense is necessary. You can't glorify it because there are extrinsic debates which are harmful for religious community. They practice perpetual inequality, perpetual oppression. There are also useful things in religious common sense. Intrinsic faith, there is different varieties of intrinsic faith. There should be balance between them. The balance is very important for secular narrative to survive, as Gandhi draws our attention, as Gramsci tries to tell us. Therefore, it is important for us to understand this process a bit more carefully and not bit more nihilistically, not a bit more rationalistically. Having said that, now this time is up. Let me stop, Giri. I'm going to discuss. Many things are there, and let us stop. Let me stop here. I will sum up. What basically one learns from Gramsci. I'll just sum up in 1 minute, and then we can discuss. From discussion, we can come
No,
back to Gramsci.
hello,
I can't hear you.
dear Arun Bhai. So you can please take up to let us listen to you substantively. So what I request you, your other points, along with religious common sense, the other points kindly touch on all the points that you speak in the
Okay,
next 10 minutes, and
I will do
then
that.
we will have the discussion.
Yeah,
And
yeah, fine.
you may
I will touch
not
upon them.
elaborate each point,
I will not elaborate. I will touch upon them. Thank you.
each
Uh,
point.
yeah, yeah. Third point, I would like to say that folk religion. See, Gramsci argues that folk religion constitutes another basket of social imaginary and necessary for secular, humanist, liberal, and socialist projects to connect with folk religion, uh, not condemn them as superstitious, as primitive, as conservative, nor simply praise them as very good, excellent, and good sense. Same thing. Comes say that theory must negotiate with pre-theoretical consciousness creatively in a dialogic form where you respect their intrinsic elements, respect their positive elements, respect their humanistic thrust, respect their progressive elements, while criticizing their conservative, negative elements, and so on and so forth, reactionary elements, and so on and so forth. This duality in dual task of a theory is something which I have learned from Gramsci only, not from Gandhi, not from Gandhi may have said something like that, but I have not come across one place. Similarly, not from Tagore, I have not come across this idea in Ambedkar at all. And therefore, it is important for us to, therefore I rely on Gramsci more heavily on this. But I draw interesting insights from Tagore to examine folk religion. Tagore argues that Tagore argues his idea of sadhana, self-realization, or what Tagore would call self-correction, or course correction of oneself, or self-criticism, or what can be called introspective reasoning, is derived from the practice of sadhana done by Baul themselves. That connection between Tagore's philosophical idea of sadhana and the Baul conception of sadhana is quite deep. Think carefully. It's very deep, and nobody has worked on this aspect. I just touched upon that. I have not worked on that, but I'm now planning to work on this. But it's important for us to see how great ideas, Gramsci says, are connected with social imaginary of ordinary people. The Baul idea of sadhana looks very ordinary. But Tagore draws inspiration from it through Upanishad, through Buddhism, and so on and so forth, and develops a new idea of sadhana, new concept of sadhana. But both the Bowles and Tagore idea of sadhana mean one thing: self-realization or introspection. Bowles use the idea of sadhana in the context of the sexual intercourse with each other, and Tagore doesn't talk about that. But in that sexual interaction among bowls, Tagore realizes that they are referring to internal process of harmony between mother and father, between men and women, between Shiva and Parvati, where the union doesn't become a burden for each other. Therefore, the course of interaction, they see that they don't become burden for each other. That remains internal part of their life. That remains part of internalization of their life. What is called sadhana. Sadhana means internalization of your life. Sadhana means some kind of introspective assessment of what you are doing. That's what Bowles practice. That's what Tagore extrapolates that idea from a folk wisdom and a text to philosophical idea by connecting with Upanishad. There's an interesting idea that's actually more or less reminiscent of Gramsci's point that all great ideas are rooted in common sense or folk religion, but they are not reducible to it. You can't reduce them, but they are rooted. The connection is important. You should not lose sight of those connections. If you lose sight of the connections, you create a void for the right to manipulate to their advantage. Now, this point is, I have examined that, and for the idea of introspective reasoning is important for me. It calls for, take from Tagore, so Falguni, where he acts like a blind bowl. He says, when there is so much of hatred developing in society, so much of contempt for each other developing in society, it is necessary for me to examine myself, not criticize the agencies of hatred, not criticize agencies of disruption or communal violence. I must look at myself, examine myself. I must practice sadhana. This is a very interesting take. And for me, secular forces must learn from Tagore. They must do sadhana. Why their project is deep crisis today. Without this sadhana, by simply criticizing the politics of hate, you cannot construct a new secularism or new humanism. A new humanism, secularism must draw its source from within oneself. Like Tagore draws sources from within himself. And through sadhana, through meditation, through introspection. That message in there in a blind bowl, in his dance drama, Falguni, is an important lesson for us to learn. Uh, this is my third point. Fourth, as I said, unlike Tagore, Gramsci argues that folk religion is not just one, not simply positive, not simply negative, not simply conservative, not simply progressive. Therefore, you can't dismiss, should not underwrite, you should not underestimate, nor you should glorify. And take situations dialectically and have a critical respect for it, and then connect with them and develop them. Then, when you do that, you will arrive at new humanism, new form of socialism by connecting with folk religion, not by dismissing it, bypassing it, as the Italian left, European left was doing in his time. And even now, Indian left also has not done great service to folk religion. They paid lip service. They dismissed folk religion as superstitious and primitive, like the European left. So, therefore, there are lessons for us how to renovate our humanistic thinking, how to renovate our communitarian thinking, how to renovate our democratic thinking by being more introspective rather than extrospective or offering a external criticism of the other. So, these are lessons we learned from Tagore and Gramsci as well. Fourth point, I would say, for Gramsci, civil society, the reconstruction of civil society is very important. For him, civil society is neither bad nor good. Like common sense, he extends the same idea. He says every society, every form of phenomena is a bundle of contradictions. There is no phenomena that exists without contradiction. So also civil society. Civil society says civil society is good, civil society is bad. Civil society promotes collective spirit, civil society promotes private spirit. It privatizes collective spirit. But at the same time, it promotes collective spirit, promotes solidarity, promotes collective action, promotes collective action in a small way in school, in colleges, in religious bodies, in family. You have collective ethos, you have cooperative ethos. So civil society is based on cooperation, civil society based on collective interaction, civil society based on what James Putnam calls social capital, therefore association life. But at the same time, each association is privatized. Each association is committed to itself, not to society. The society is privatized. Society is deeply divided, deeply fragmented. Therefore, civil society is neither bad nor good. Many leftists dismiss civil society as utterly bad, utterly to dismissed of. From Rousseau, Marx to Foucault, they dismiss civil society completely. Gramsci argues that this is commenting on Marx. He says Marx's account is spiritually thin. His account of civil society is essentially economic rather than spiritual. There is no spiritual account of civil society necessary for a Marx to enhance his argument. Because he says Marx was limited with information, therefore he took a negative view of civil society. He borrowed from Hegel, and both Hegel and Marx took a very thin view of civil society. Hegel was positive of civil society, though he offered a thin view, but Marx was negative of civil society. That's because he offered a thin view. Both is interesting. You have thin description of different kind, positive and negative in Hegel and Gramsci gives a very complex argument for all these things. So what I find is Gramsci doesn't agree with them. They say this is a negative account. Liberals glorify civil society and say civil society is good for democracy, civil society good for association life, civil society good for constitutional democracy. Without civil society, you can't have democracy. Locke says, without civil society, there is no constitutional democracy in Britain. It's very clear that idea has been central part of argument of liberal project. Therefore, liberals find civil society absolutely free from contradiction. Gramsci argues that these two are binaries. You can't excite with this binary, that binary. Left-wing binary, right-wing binary, liberal binary, they are not agreeable. There is an element of truth in both sides. It is important for us to combine them, follow a middle path. Therefore, Gramsci argues that it is necessary to reconstitute civil society from the point of view of subaltern. He says subalterns, for example, are lost out in civil society. They are marginalized. Necessary for us to reconstruct civil society by 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 means of civil society, not without it, not by transcending civil society. By means of civil society, we must transform civil society. This is an interesting point he makes. I will discuss it if we have time. Finally, last point I would say. Finally, the point Gramsci makes is that the humanist and socialist project can survive only by dialoguing with subalterns. Subalterns of all kinds in all societies. A source of knowledge for humanism, for rational thinking, for progressive ideas must come from within the subaltern masses. You must gather good sense in varieties of common sense of subaltern masses, varieties of subaltern masses, varieties of good sense. You must gather them, collect them, and synthesize them, and then theorize them. Then add new things to that. But if you don't do that starting point, you are disconnected from them. You create a space for the right-wing forces to dominate and control that domain. Therefore, you instead of being counter-hegemonic, your project will not even be a challenge to hegemony. Therefore, you're not able to develop alternative hegemony at all. If you are trying to create a humanistic society, you are trying to create a democratic society, necessary for us as intellectuals to stay in touch with non-intellectuals. Have a continuous dialogue with them. If you don't have dialogue with them, you will not know their aspirations. You will not know their goals. You will not know what they want to do. You will go on telling them what you want them to do. This is not socialism. This is not humanism. He says, if there is, if the, Gramsci says, if there is socialism without humanism, I would like to disown socialism. He believes in absolute humanism, not absolute socialism. Gramsci argues that for socialist, it is important for us to know that first we must be humanistic. Then only you can be socialistic. If you are not a good human being, how will you be a good socialist? My teacher, Sadri, once he asked me, I will end with that. He asked me, Arun, tell me why all bedfellows, all not so good fellows, have become Marxists in India. Then I was surprised. I said, sir, what do you mean? No, but look at your teachers in JNU. He said, he was bit more sarcastic. He said, look at your teachers in JNU. All bedfellows have become Marxists. They ruined the future of Marxism. Then I remember Gramsci. Gramsci says same thing. If there is no good humanism, you can't have a good socialism. Therefore, Socialism is not absolute. Humanism is absolute. This is a lesson we learn from Gramsci, and therefore it is necessary for us to. And how to expand humanism? You expand humanism by connecting good senses of subaltern masses, varieties of good sense. Try to build what Aristotle called practical wisdom, to mobilize people on a platform of practical wisdom. To do so, you must stay in touch with masses and learn from them, observe their ideas, criticize them, but don't dismiss them, don't glorify them. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Patnaik, for your engaged presentation and your care, deep care to both do justice to Gramsci's project as well as the dialogue that you have initiated. For example, sadhana and other themes. So important, and also common sense and the Janmabhoomi movement. So thank you. Now let us please, dear friends, join Professor Patnaik in conversations. So I invite friends to kindly share your thoughts, questions, comments in a concentrated way, taking each one of you 1 or 2 minutes, please. So I invite fellow participants, please. Let us see, beginning with, we have Alok Tandon with us, Dr. Alok Tandon. So Dr. Alok Tandon, please. Okay, he's taking some time, yes. So now, Gyanluigi, please. Gyanluigi.
Yes, excuse me. Can you hear me? Because I
Yes,
have
we can
some
hear you.
problem. I have some problem. Can you hear me? Can you
Yes,
hear
we
me?
can hear.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, thank you very much. It was very interesting and very rich. I am myself analyzing some text of Gramsci, in particular those regarding the issue on the prince with together with a group which has its seat in New York. And well, of course, we have at the beginning of our analysis, therefore, I could not add now argumentations and contents to the brilliant exposition and to the brilliant thesis of our professor. And I thank you very much, and I hope that we will keep in touch because I am interested in Gramsci and I am planning now to write something based on the observation which I could express through these sessions with New York. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can I ask?
Maruk.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, just a brief question. Sir, you mentioned that fatalism, manifests.
One request. Hello, one request. Kindly introduce yourself.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Charvak. I'm teaching at Gautam University, Hyderabad. I'm teaching political science. I'm a student of Arun Patnaik, sir, for several years, although I just did MA in Hyderabad University. So I've been
And
constantly.
would you mind putting on your video, please?
I'm
We
in
would
a,
like
in
to
a
see.
yeah, I'm in a room where like there are more than 3 people, so
Okay.
it's not a very ideal space for me to turn on the video, but yeah, just one question. Sir, you mentioned that fatalism manifests differently among subaltern groups and compared to the middle classes, right? So I was wondering what explains this distinction, and how do you just explain why do they think about fatalism differently? Yeah, that's it.
So, Professor Patnaik, I request you to kindly collect the question.
No, I disconnected. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, I muted myself. So, see, the reason why.
What I request, Professor Patnaik, you
Hmm.
please collect the question,
Okay,
and
fine, fine,
then
fine.
we would
Yeah,
hear
it's
you
better.
almost at the that we
Yeah,
can learn together any other
true. Let
queries.
many people ask questions. Yeah.
Yes. So, Orosmita, please. Okay. Susriapa, then Susriapa, Maruf, Asis, Minati, and Anil. You can kindly think about your questions. Susriapa.
Thank you, Ananta bhai, and thank you, Professor Patnaik, for a very deeply engaging and thought-provoking presentation. Um, so I have, few
Please.
thoughts and questions that I had.
No, hello, Appa. If it is not inconvenient, you can put on your video if it
Okay,
is possible. Yeah.
okay. It may get disconnected because the internet is, connectivity is poor here. So maybe at the end,
Yeah.
I will try.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So, so there were, quite a few points and questions, but then, as the presentation proceeded, many questions are answered. As very, very strikingly and beautifully said, humanism is absolute, socialism is not. And the essence of any ism, any socialism, ultimately converges at humanism. Coming back to the points on common sense. Mm, okay, referring to but Gramsci's work. I haven't read Professor Patnaik's work Ajay, now, and I'm sure that this book, as much as I heard and grasped, would be a good answers for answer to those uh, criticism of uh, which highlights that probably Gramsci's work has been more understood or more looked at through a Eurocentric lens. So I think Professor Patnaik's work is a good answer for that. Is what I could feel from what I gathered from the presentation. Coming to the common sense. So is there a possibility that we are risking oversimplification of commonsensical, common sense here, Raja. Um, to be precise, my thought is when we talk of the common sense, how do we actually, does it take into account the internal contradictions and variation within the religious, political, or cultural, practices when we, talk about the common sense framework? So this was one question. I think I'll listen more to others and Professor Patnaik with this. Thank you. Once again. I'm trying to unmute. Let me. Was I audible?
Yeah, audible.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Maruf, please. Okay, Maruf is
Yes,
taking
sir. Yes,
time.
sir. Yes, sir. I am here. It was pleasure to listen. I just wanted to clarify if she had clearly, Gramsci was clearly saying Marxism is incompatible with religion. But then we know also humanism is fundamentally, it is human-centric and not God-centric. Now, all the subaltern masses, in general, all the tribal cultures, all those people about whom we would try to speak about, they are fundamentally associated with some sense of the sacred, where God is, or the absolute, or whatever you put in that name. Some sacred is at the center. So now Gramsci would love to use the religion, for example, for the socialism. Don't you think that it is deep down a problem with engaging with the masses, that you are fundamentally telling them that they are fundamentally mistaken in their most fundamental claim regarding the existence or their orientation or relationship to the sacred, and then we can only use that factor for some counter hegemony or that. I just wanted to Patnaik ji to respond.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Alok Tandon, please. Okay, Dr. Tandon, you are taking time. I have invited you 2 times. And in case you want to speak, you can come at the end. Now, Minati, please. Minati and Randhir.
Yeah, thank you, Ananta bhai. Actually, it was very insightful presentation, and congratulations to Professor Patnaik for his book. I mean, whatever questions were there before, few participants they have already asked. But I have one query about about the dual consciousness. I mean, I want that little more light on that, how it is sharply opposite to each other. So for today, that much only. Thank you.
Ha, Minati. Hello,
Yes,
Minati.
yes, Ananta bhai.
Where is your persistent gender question? You are not asking the question of gender, you know. No, I am not.
Probably spared me. She has probably spared me from gender.
I'm just letting people say pull your leg, not to do that. It's also something to think together.
Now I
Okay.
am transcending towards bigger things from the gender.
Okay. So now, Randhir, please. Okay, Randhir is taking some time. Let me offer one or two queries quickly. One is, hello, Randhir. Randhir, okay. One or two themes quickly. One is that now religious common sense, and then the way the political parties make use of it. And the way Professor Patnaik, in your presentation of Rama Janmabhoomi case, so you are presenting it in a way, but without also acknowledging the death and destruction it has created. You know, before BJP took up the Ram Janmabhoomi issue, now there are also multiple kind of engagement with the issue of Janmabhoomi, with Ram, and I am just coming from Ajodhya, and important this valorized constructed temple is, I pay my respect to it. I have been with our Ram Lalla, but before the construction of the temple, the Ram Janmabhoomi place existed, and there was a kind of integral, relationality with them. It was there. And so therefore it is not that the secular Indian secular consciousness didn't have within it places like the Rama Janmabhoomi linked religious spirituality. It was already there, and it was there in a far more authentic way than the political production of it by BJP. Secondly, this political use of religious common sense is a deeply problematic project. And in your presentation, you are not interrogating the foundational problematic of the politicization of religious common sense. And as if it is the only way out, but not really. For example, the way Advani created the Rath Yatra. And I remember meeting his cabinet colleague of the post-emergency days, Ravindra Burma, who was with the Gandhian, he founded the Institute of Gandhian Studies. He said that I told Lal Krishna, what is this? In Hinduism, you do not put blood on your rath and then, carry a vessel of blood there. So, and then Ashish Nandi also has a book called, Ram Janmabhoomi Movement and the Creation of Self. And I wonder whether you have engaged with, that, critique or that engagement with the Janmabhoomi. This is my first query. Secondly, the very common sense itself is the kind of Gramsci takes the middle path. But what my submission is, what we learn from Gramsci in terms of the cultivation of a proper modality of common sense, and in what way. And the same thing is also about civil society. And since Gramsci also built upon certain kind of his own religious spiritual tradition. And so what is the Gramscian path of sadhana? As you bring, Tagore's sadhana with its multiple roots. Similarly, what is Gramsci's path of sadhana? Because this sadhana as a point, as for example, praxis is a very important dimension of engagement in Gramsci and Marx, praxis and practice. And that if we bring the sadhana and practice together, and which you are hinted at, but it a deeper, both conceptual elaboration as well as its fleshing out in terms of would be a Gramsci path of sadhana, which would enrich Tagore's sadhana. Possibly one could possibly think along this line that a Gramsci sadhana with much more class consciousness and at the same time not becoming a prisoner of class fatalism. For example, Tagore himself was a landlord and he was to different estates. And whether there is an account of how he related his workers or not. So possibly that kind of a class conscious approach and at the same time doing sadhana. And finally about humanism is that 150 years ago or 100 years ago, humanism was an unproblematic category. But you know yourself very well the limits of humanism itself. For example, very interesting would be that today, what is the Gramsci's approach to climate question? In sense, similarly, Ambedkar's approach to climate change, because if we are talking about social justice and emancipation, so especially given the centrality of the climate question today, and what is the notion of common sense, and then that also brings us to the question of nature, because in the Marxian tradition, Marx had a very nuanced relationship with nature that recently scholars are helping us to discover. He was not just a productivist, and whether similarly Gramsci's relationship with nature, what it is. So these are some of my submissions, please. And of course, I should not forget the gender question in the sense that that Gramsci gender and the possibility of a new common sense, and that brings, for example, a lot has been written about Gandhi's relationship with women, Tagore's relationship with women, and whether Gramsci's relationship with women to begin with, and also the gender dimension as part of the broader category, a broader path of emancipation.
Shall I answer?
You can kindly now begin.
Yeah. Thank you very much for very good questions. I first try to answer questions posed by Charbak, Susri, and Minati, where they are almost point to similar kind of thing. Why there is internal contradiction, or why there is dual consciousness, and or how does one explain fatalism masses in duality? The idea is that Gramsci argues that what is fatalism masses? Fatalism masses basically trying to reconcile with the existing order. You are conform. You follow conformist norms. You think that there is no alternative. You feel there is better to reconcile with your position in power relationship. That forms a kind of fatalism. Gramsci argues that though this is a general trend in among the upper classes, middle classes, as well as subaltern masses, there is no alternative. This is the best one, and nothing else better. This is a kind of fatalism which is rampant among middle classes as workers. But point is, unlike middle class, workers also experience marginality. Therefore, it produces consciousness, subjectivity of its own. The resentment of marginalization. There is a search for autonomy. There is a hope for a better life. Therefore, this hope and no alternative, these two things coexist because of subalternity. The one that explains the dual forms of contradiction or internal contradictions, as other two asked me, is this notion of subalternity. So long as subalterns know they experience subalternity locally, despite fatalism, they will be resentful of it. There will be fatalism will be the superscript, but the resentment of that will be the underscript. The caricature of that fatalism will be the underscript. If I am using James Scott, therefore, the idea is that this constitutes internal contradiction, or this constitutes what Minati was saying, dual consciousness. These two forms of consciousness exist at the same time, same space, same person. Forget space and time. Same person, or same group, or same class, or same. If I get Foucault's conception, same social body. You have dual consciousness. Now, the dual consciousness operates, as I said, because of subalternity, because of marginality, because of the process of marginalization, which workers, women, Dalits, Adivasis know by heart. They don't need Ambedkar, Gandhi, and Gramsci to teach them how they are marginalized. This is the point Gramsci makes. Here, Gramsci is not required. Here, Ambedkar is required. What Ambedkar and Gramsci should know from them is this consciousness. Without knowing that, you cannot connect with them. You don't assume that you are the priest-like class and you emancipate people without learning from them. This is for Gramsci is a typical enlightenment error committed by the existing left and repeated by post-Gramscian left. That's why I'm with Gramsci. Gramsci is interesting, extremely engaging because of this awareness that you cannot learn, you can't simply teach people without learning from them. Therefore, you must be engaged in dialogue. Dialogue is about teaching and learning from each other. Learner must be, as he says, teacher must be student, student must be teacher. Without this, there is no process of humanism. There is no process of emancipation. There is no search for freedom. There is no, forget emancipation. There is no search for freedom. Without this, there will be caste-like block between us and them. Or there will be priest-like mindset between teachers and students. Gramsci uses metaphor like caste-like, priest-like, enlightened errors, rationalist mistakes. These are the very beautiful metaphors he uses. Mean same thing. Therefore, you necessary for us to understand that do not underestimate the power of common man. Remember Shahrukh Khan's film Chennai Express. Do not underestimate power of common man. Do not also glorify the knowledge of common man. The one Giri said, valorization of temple. Don't valorize. Similarly, Giri should not forget. don't underestimate. You must offer a dual critique. You must critique underestimation of temple, which leads to domination of one faith over another. You must also critique valorization of temple, which again may lead to glorification and underestimation of others. Therefore, necessary for us to not to underestimate, not to glorify. This duality is part of a theoretical engagement. The intellectual engagement must have this dual path of engaging with common sense, which you need not underestimate, need not glorify. Similarly, religious common sense, you need not underestimate, need not glorify. If you don't follow this dual path, you will be ending in Ashish Nandi's trap. You asked the right question. I have examined Ashish Nandi. In that essay, in that book, Ashish Nandi argues, very interestingly says, look at this man spent his life in criticizing Enlightenment project, spent his life in criticizing Enlightenment error, rationalistic thinking, Western modernity, ends up there while assessing Ram Janmabhoomi. Paradoxically, he moves from one pole, another pole. What does he say? He says, all the Karasevaks in Ram Janmabhoomi are lumpens. All Karasevaks. Look at the word. All Karasevaks are lumpens. This is a typical rationalist word. Gramsci argues unambiguously that do not call the supporters of fascism lumpens. Do not call. Because 3 reasons. 1, you are following the Enlightenment rationality. You are dismissing their knowledge and bracketing them off with lumpenism. And therefore, you are not recognizing contradiction in their consciousness. Therefore, they were not recognizing religious common sense. You are not recognizing contradiction in common sense. You are simply taking one side of the. There may be lumpenism. Lumpenism may be partly true. But what you are missing is fatalism is partly true. Point is that fatalism or lumpenism, you are not witnessing good sense. I give an example. In Madras district, which I studied while Nandi was writing his book, Satyamurthy's volume, which nobody has cited in India except me. I am citing my book, my paper repeatedly. It's published in Oxford University volume. And nobody else wrote on Hindutva at that time. I was the second author who wrote an essay on Hindutva by doing a lot of field work. And people of India generally felt uncomfortable with my formulation. So fine, but BJP has grown big and bigger. When you ignore Gramsci, you ignore yourself. You ignore your. The point is, you can ignore Arun Patnaik, but point is you are ignoring Gramsci. I use Gramsci's framework, and I was the second author after Gyan Pandey's essay on Hindutva, which was published a bit late. Actually, my paper was published before, but it is not published. My paper was ready before, but Gyan Pandey's essay was published early in EPW. My paper was published a bit late in Oxford University volume, but it was safely ignored by everybody from left to the right on Hindutva. Mine was second essay on Hindutva. And I don't know talk about myself, but my point is, by ignoring me, left in India undermined itself because they undermined Gramsci himself. Gramsci argues quite clearly that look at I did a study of Dalits in Madras district who were participants in Ram Janmabhoomi movement. They were the Karasevaks carrying Ram bricks from Madras to Ayodhya. They were going hand in hand with Reddy, with Balama, with OBCs. They were traveling together. They were walking together. When I asked them, they said, when they returned, I asked them, I had interview. They said, we had a sense of equality because we carried Ram bricks for the first time. We are now asked to participate in Karasevak movement as equal partners of Reddy's Balamas. So far, Reddy's Balamas never connected with us. So far, we are non-existent for them. So far, they tried to dominate us. For the first time in our life, we participated in Ram Janmabhoomi movement as equal partners. This consciousness in Dalit Karasevaks is undermined by Ashish Nandi's characterization of the entire thing is lumpenism. This is not lumpenism, my dear Giri. It's necessary for you to understand that this consciousness is in contradiction with their participation in Ram Janmabhoomi movement. But this consciousness is the duality. The duality in Dalit participation is important for us to understand. Ashish Nandi failed to understand equality in the Dalit common sense, who were participants in Karasabak movement, and bracketed them as if they are lumpens, just because they are carrying, they are shouting lumpen slogans, which is manufactured by upper caste. In the process, they missed out, all the 5 authors who wrote that volume, missed out this project, that the Dalit Karasabaks of Medak district are having notion of equality, social equality. And that has forced RSS and BJP to rethink of caste-based norms. Don't, at that time when I met Ramadhav, he was not even general, he was actually Jagruti editor. He said, I am the only person in RSS who is fighting against caste inequality. Nobody else believes in myself. They've made me editor of Jagruti. Nobody else believes in caste free society. They practice caste, and I am the only one who is advocating against caste inequality. And but today, he's not the only one, because the pressure from below has taught lessons to RSS to learn from them. Remember, remember, hegemon is a learner. Mark the word from Gramsci. Hegemon is a continuous learner, continuous innovator, continuous strategist, continuous. Unless you learn from people on a continuous basis, on a repeated basis, on expanded scale, you can never acquire hegemony through manipulation, through lumpenism. Sorry, this is not correct understanding of hegemony. Hegemony exercises through lumpenism is fine. They are only conspiracy, manipulation. They are part of hegemony, a small part. The bigger part is based on consent of people. Unless the consent of people is given, no hegemon can be hegemon. Therefore, this RSS and the Hindu right has acquired this by drawing lessons from Ram Janma movement. From that day onwards, from 1989 onwards, RSS has become RSS. You look at the leadership of RSS. Now it talks about anti-caste. The lesson is quite clear. They have learned lessons from Ram Janma movement. The hopes of Dalits, hopes of OBCs to liquidate caste have gone to the RSS leadership, gone to the BJP leadership. There are contradictions in this leadership. I agree. But point is, the top leadership is now talking about anti-caste, so much so that the Hindu fanatics call them pseudo-Hindus. Don't forget, today RSS chief is called a pseudo-Hindu. By whom? By Hindu fanatics. This is interesting. Puri Shankaracharya calls him pseudo-Hindu. Say these are all pseudo-Hindus, they are not Sanatanis. Look at this contradiction. Now, you have to see the. That's why I disagree with Nandi's characterization, and Nandi has failed to understand religious common sense as Gramsci tries to draw our attention to it. So, I think I have answered, but there are many more issues, Giri. I think Gramscian idea of sadhana is very interesting. I think that is an interesting project. But what I find similarity between Gramsci and Tagore is the idea of sadhana, that both believe in introspection. Unlike Tagore, Gramsci believes in criticizing other. He is not silent about criticism of other. Tagore is silent. Tagore is not critical of communalism in Bengal. But faced with that, he withdraws and talks about sadhana, self-realize. Look at the inner self, look at the deficits, how to overcome it. By talking to other, he talks to himself. This process, the dialectical process there in Gramsci. Gramsci also talks to other through criticism, not simply by introspection. So Gramsci uses this dual path. Tagore follows, in my view, one path. So he is critical of himself and critical of the other. Critical of fascism, critical of Communist Party, of which he is a founding member. He says, we can't criticize fascism. The strength of fascism is the common sense of people. Why Fascist Party and Communist Party were set up in same year, and no time, Fascist Party became a national party, Communist Party became a local party. It's still limping. Reason is, fascism could appeal to emotions of people, common sense of people, whereas communism tried to bypass them, undermine them, underestimate them. This is a lesson from fascism Gramsci draws in the prison notebooks. Prior to that, when he entered prison, he was not having idea of common sense. Only he was talking like a vanguard intellectual. By joining prison, by looking inside the prison, he realized that his party and fascist party came same year. The fascist party became a bigger party. His party is still small party. Reason why? Simple. Fascism appeals to emotions of people. If communism has no strategy of appealing to emotions of people, therefore it could not become hegemonic. Therefore, it's necessary for us to learn from the strength of fascism. That is common sense. Common sense will support fascism. It's the strength of fascism. Necessary for us to learn from it. What is there? What is that? In that one should rely on and one should criticize. Therefore, this lesson is very political in Gramsci's sense, and therefore, idea in case of my Tagore, Gramsci uses idea of sadhana while criticizing the other. He must learn from the other. This is missing in Tagore. In Tagore's case, or maybe there, but what little I've read, I don't find that explicitly stated in Tagore. But Tagore is being a poet, he writes in a poetic language, one has read his language carefully, but I don't find this duality in Tagore. You must learn from the strength of the adversary is entirely missing in Tagore, or not stated by Tagore. Probably Tagore may arrive at this conclusion if he had more time, or I don't know. But my guess is he has not stated anywhere that the enemies also have strength necessary for us to learn from that. Therefore, it requires a different kind of sadhana. Learning from enemy, remember Ram's advice to Lakshman, Ramayana, Lanka Kand. Ram gives advice to Lakshman. Learn from your adversary, learn from enemy Baba. Lakshman is reluctant. No, sorry. You have to learn from Ravan. He is a great worshipper of Lord Shiva. His art of worship. We have to learn. Art of governance. We have to learn. We have today, tomorrow, we have to go to Ajodhya. Then we must learn. That's there in Gramsci. Gramsci argues that one must learn from strength of the adversary. Adversary strength must be our own. If you don't do it, you are doomed. Your hegemony project is gone. Simple matter. Thank you.
So, so thank you, Professor Patnaik. And now, Minati, please.
We can go for vote of thanks.
Yes.
Thank you. I, Minati Pradhan, on behalf of Sadhyasa Chakra and Vishwaneedam Center, would like to thank today's chief speaker, Professor Patnaik, for his very insightful discussion about his book Gramsci and South Asia. Thank you so much, sir. I also would like to thank the people who have joined with us, Professor Charavati, Professor Ganluiji, Ms. Dr. Maruf Shaha, Dr. Susri Sangita Misra, and Ashish Gupta, Anil Kathi, Orosmita Sahu, and people who have joined us from our Facebook platform and as well as from our YouTube platform. Thank you all. Please pardon me if I have forgotten anybody's name, but I really thank all of you from bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.